What is going on, everybody? My name is John Dawson, and in today's video, we are hopping into a 2023 fantasy football mock draft. Today's format will be a full PPR 12-team mock. We've got a preview of the mock on the screen, but stay tuned to get breakdowns of each and every round and my specific strategy for today's mock draft. If you guys are new to the channel, all we do here is free fantasy football content all year round, redraft, dynasty, and best ball. If you're into that, hit that subscribe button on the way in. Whether you guys are new to the channel or not, be sure to hit that like button on the way in as well. And please feel free to drop any comments, questions, concerns pertaining to the 2023 fantasy football season down below. Without further ado, let's not waste any time. Let's hop right into today's video. All right, so right off the board, we've got Justin Jefferson, Christian McCaffrey, Jamar Chase, and Bijan gone. So these are easily going to be the first two wide receivers and first two running backs that you're going to see off the board in redraft formats. No doubt in my mind. Not really in any particular order, but no doubt, like I said, JJ, Chase, Bijan, C-Mac will all be gone. We see JT off the board at 1.5. So here I am at 1.6, a lot of different directions we can go in. I'm going to take Austin Ekeler off the board here. I know that there are fantasy managers out there who are concerned about Austin Ekeler amongst the trade rumors and everything that's happened this past offseason, but I'm not one of them. I have a ton of faith in Austin Ekeler, who was your RB1 in PPR and standard scoring formats last season. I just don't really get why people are concerned. You know, we look at Christian McCaffrey last season, who went from the Carolina Panthers to the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, a team that has been kind of notorious for utilizing more than one running back, and his fantasy value was not hurt at all. I mean, if Austin Ekeler goes to another team, I don't think his fantasy value is going to be affected. If he stays with the Chargers, then I think he's still a top 5 running back going into next year. Regardless, when I'm looking at the first round right now, I'm either going to have to make a decision. Do I want to go hero running back, or do I want to go heavy wide receiver? So far throughout the offseason and redraft formats, those are the two strategies that I think are working the best overall. So if I don't land Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase, as much as I like names like Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Stephon Diggs, I also don't want to miss out on the best possible running backs for a hero running back build, which are easily going to be Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, and Austin Ekeler in my opinion. So if those guys are on the board, I'm either taking one of those 3 running backs, or I'm starting my draft with a plethora of wide receivers. Regardless, here at 2.7, I'm just simply going to take the best wide receiver off the board. We've got names like Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith, a lot of different options here. Chris Olave is there as well. At the moment, when I'm looking at sleepers ADP for full PPR leagues, I would not trust them personally. There are going to be names that you're going to have to scroll down a little bit, and this is going to be pretty common for, a lot of formats out there, whether you're drafting through Yahoo or ESPN or whatever it may be. Make sure you're scrolling around, because there are going to be some names that are somewhat hidden and are going much higher than their current ADP. But I'll take Jalen Waddle here as my first wide receiver off the board. And then literally picks 3.6, 4.7, I'm probably taking wide receivers with both of those selections. This particular format that we're drafting in is pretty standard, okay? 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 flex spots, a tight end spot, and then a couple of bench spots. So we don't have to put a ton of emphasis on the wide receiver position per se, but I want those 2 flex spots to be 2 wide receivers I can rely on a regular basis. And when I said we're going hero running back, like we're starting Ekeler, then we're looking for good late round value to fill in that RB2 spot. And if we absolutely need to, we'll be able to play a running back in the second flex spot as well. But like I said, I would prefer to be primarily wide receivers in those flex spots. All right, moving into the end of the second round here, okay? Travis Kelce is the only tight end off the board. At this point in the offseason, that is primarily what you are going to see in redraft formats. At some point in the third, beginning of the fourth, Andrews or Hawkinson will go as well. But Kelce, just so you guys are aware, if you haven't done a lot of mocks yet, Kelce will literally go anywhere from the 1.5 to the 1.12, but he will go in the first round. Another note I want to make is Bijan Robinson, who I'm very happy went at 1.4. in this particular mock, because in some redraft mocks that you see out there, even in best ball drafts as well, we're not necessarily seeing Bijan be drafted like super aggressive in the first couple selections, but he needs to be. By the time August is here, Bijan will easily be a top 5 selected running back in all redraft, all best ball formats. I 100% guarantee that. And I want to see that ADP pushed up. I would not rely, if you are doing redraft mocks right now and you're getting Bijan Robinson at the 1.9, 1.10, 1.12 in the second round somehow, don't rely on that. Come August time, it's not going to happen. So I'm really happy that he went at the 1.4 tonight. All right, back here at the 3.6 on the clock, I'm just simply going to take the best available wide receiver. I'm going to go DK Metcalf here, a wide receiver who year after year I just feel like continues to be disrespected overall, and it's just always productive. I know that JSN is there. I totally get it. There's more volume to go around between Lockett and Metcalf with JSN there. Whatever. I don't care. Metcalf is still the locked-in wide receiver 1 at the end of the day, and I'm perfectly more than happy with selecting him as my second wide receiver off the board. All right, new topic. We've got quarterbacks starting to go. So 3.9, we see Josh Allen off the board. Patty Mahomes gone at the 3.10. So far in the offseason, we've seen a lot of movement in redraft formats at the quarterback position. Right after the Super Bowl, I mean, we were already mock drafting on the channel, and quarterbacks were going like end of the first. In a lot of early best ball tournaments, especially on Underdog, beginning of the offseason, quarterbacks were going at the end of the first, and you still sometimes are seeing that right now in the offseason in Underdog tournaments. But at the end of the day, I think come August time, Allen, Mahomes, Hurts can go anywhere from the end of the second, beginning of the third, all the way, depending on who you're drafting with, back to the end of the third. So I still think it, like I said, purely depends on who you're drafting with in a one quarterback league. I think those guys are really going to shift throughout the offseason, just dependent on what the hot hand is, right? Are people really going after, aggressively drafting wide receivers, for example? That was a trend that we saw a lot of last offseason, whatever it may be, right? But I think those top tier quarterbacks are just going to float around a little bit in ADP. Tonight they go with the 3.9, 3.10, and then we'll start to see some additional runs happen here at the position. Now, last year when you looked at the top 5 quarterbacks in fantasy compared to the next top 5 quarterbacks, number 6 through 10, there was a huge disparity in points scored. So do I think it's important to draft a quarterback early? No. Even with that being said, I don't. I think there's always good value in single quarterback redraft leagues that you can just hold off. Don't get me wrong. I totally understand the want to go after a quarterback early, as we see Hurts gone at 4.6. But I personally would just rather hold back. I totally get it. Don't get me wrong. If you draft Mahomes, am I against it? No. But if I can get players like Geno Smith, Jared Goff, Daniel Jones at the end of my draft, even if I have to draft 2 guys, that's what I'm going to go with. If I can get the right value on Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence, then I'm not going to pass them up. Justin Herbert's probably in that same tier for me as well. But literally, you look at last fantasy season, some of the value at quarterback was just stupid. Daniel Jones was your QB9 last year. Geno Smith was your QB5. Jared Goff was your QB10. Kirk Cousins, don't be wrong, never feels like a fun quarterback to take, but he was your QB6, and all those guys are very, very affordable. Then I think there's other interesting names at the end of drafts, like Brock Purdy, for example, once he's good to go and fully healthy and everything. Aaron Rodgers is another name that I think in redraft formats, single quarterback formats, is somebody to definitely take a chance on. So Burrow's off the board here at 4.8. Don't get me wrong. If I have a Burrow, Hurts, Allen, Mahomes on my team, I'm ecstatic. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking any of you guys who want to go out and draft a quarterback early, but I just think it makes more sense to get a lot of good value at wide receiver, running back, tight end skill positions at the end of the day. Although, once again, looking at tight end, after the wasteland we saw last year, I'm not against drafting tight ends a little bit more aggressively, but I want to get a good value tight end. Last offseason for me, it was Dallas Goedert. I was hammering Dallas Goedert throughout the offseason, just a good value tight end. Right now, I'm looking at tight ends like Evan Ingram, Cole Kmet, even some rookies like Michael Mayer and Kincaid who hold a little bit of risk in redraft, but even guys like Jawan Johnson, Hayden Hurst, like I think it's okay to take a dart throw guy like that and a guy that you believe in, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Cole Kmet, Pat Fryermuth, and ride with them into the season. I still really like Dallas Goedert, but obviously his ADP is a little bit higher. If he falls to you at the right value, I'm okay with taking him as well. But for the most part, my strategies at this point in the offseason, hero running back or aggressively going wide receiver early, then fading tight end and fading quarterback. We're in the 5th round. Let's see how this thing shakes out. So I'm going to go Brandon Ayuk here. A lot of good names at wide receiver on the board, though. Michael Pittman sitting there, Chris Godwin sitting there, Hollywood Brown, Tyler Lockett. I think those would be the top guys that come to mind. I'm really high on Brandon Ayuk coming into the 2023 fantasy football season. I just think that the Niners are a team that we want pieces of, and I just think he's a great value at 5.6. I know he was kind of under the radar last season, but he was your wide receiver 15 in full PPR and standard scoring formats. Over 1,000 receiving yards, 78 receptions, and 8 touchdowns. I think, with kind of the carousel that we saw at quarterback, Brandon Ayuk's year kind of got brushed under the rug, but he had a really productive year. And like getting him as a wide receiver 4 who's going to be in my flex spot, I just absolutely love that. So I think he's a great value at where he's going right now. Getting him in the 5th round is just ridiculous to me. Okay. Looking at my roster right now, I've got that hero running back locked in, and Austin Eckler is my RB1. I've got my wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 spots filled in with Waddle and Metcalf. My 2 flex spots are going to be DJ Moore and Brandon Ayuk. So now is the point in the draft. Fields and Lawrence are gone, right? So Herbert's on the board. If Herbert somehow falls out to 6.7, I will take Herbert. If he does not fall out, we're fading quarterback, okay? Looking at tight ends, right? There are some good names. If Goddard falls out as Herbert's off the board at 5.12, we'll go Goddard. If Goddard does not fall out, then we'll fade tight end, at least to the 7.6. So I will more than likely, especially with Herbert off the board, and there goes captaining like that, Kirk Cousins, I will be going running back at the 6.7. So just because you go hero running back does not mean that you need to neglect the running back position. But I do want to make some points on redraft style running backs that I like. Okay. Listen, Jahmyr Gibbs went at the 3.4 tonight. Side note, he will be going much higher come August time. In my opinion, he will be a end of the 1st, beginning the 2nd round selection in redraft. Nonetheless, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be very productive this year. He is going to be, as long as he stays healthy, what the Lions always wanted out of DeAndre Swift. And I still like DeAndre Swift, don't get me wrong. But Gibbs is going to see a ton of production. I still think David Montgomery is going to have a very productive year. I think he's going to vulture a lot of touchdowns within that offense. So I like David Montgomery at the 6.7. I also like Isaiah Pacheco at the 6.7. Those are 2 guys in redraft style formats that I think fill in perfectly as RB2s. So kind of a tough decision here. I'm going to take Isaiah Pacheco because he's tied to the Kansas City Chiefs offense. Don't get me wrong. They threw the football the 4th most in the league last year. They throw the football a lot. They should. Patrick Mahomes is their quarterback. But that other percentage of running plays that they have, Isaiah Pacheco should see all of those. Even with Jerick McKinnon coming back, I think Pacheco's production is going to be very, very solid. McKinnon is going to be the pass-catching guy. And let's face it, the playoff run for Isaiah Pacheco was very, very good. I think he really solidified himself as the RB1 throughout the playoffs. When you look at Jerick McKinnon's stats throughout the playoffs, they were not good. They just weren't. But very different running backs. McKinnon's back. I'm not worried about Pacheco. He is an example of a running back in a redraft format that I absolutely love. I think he's primed for a very, very good sophomore year. When you look at his stats, I mean, it was really for just about half of the season. So I just imagine what Pacheco is going to be able to do in a full season within that offense. I love where Pacheco's at right now. I love him in the 6th round at this point in the offseason. All right, moving into the 7th round, I realized I never talked about DJ Moore, who I picked at 4.7. Listen, I get that his career so far has been a little bit shaky, but I'm of the belief that he will take a step forward with the Chicago Bears. And I don't think his career being shaky has really been his fault. It's just been the quarterbacks he's been paired with. But at least 4 touchdowns in every season since 2019. That's not great, but it is worth noting he had the most touchdowns of his career last year with 7 touchdowns, with a complete carousel at the quarterback position, as well as coaching changes, as well as losing their best offensive player in Christian McCaffrey. I like DJ Moore. I think he's great as a wide receiver 3. I'm going to take A.J. Dillon off the board here. And the other kind of trend we've really seen over the past couple years in the NFL are kind of like, I don't want to say super teams, but teams just going out and being aggressive in the offseason and building much better offenses. And like from a fantasy perspective, we just want to continue to follow those trends. The Broncos last year, easily the worst example, right? But you look at the Eagles last year adding A.J. Brown, completely different offense after that for a lot of reasons, but A.J. Brown a big part of that. You look at the Rams the year before, adding Matthew Stafford and becoming a staple for the entire fantasy season. You look at the Buccaneers the year before that, Tom Brady coming into the mold. Like I just think we want to continue to follow those types of trends, unless it's the Broncos. But yeah, I love DJ Moore as a wide receiver 3 and a flex option going into this season. Okay, taking A.J. Dillon at the 7.6, I was praying that James Conner or Rachaad White would fall out there. I think Kamara is okay. Like, we need the legal situation to clear up, or else you're just playing a hypothetical if you're drafting him right now. But yes, absolutely, Kamara can hold value going into next year, especially if he's only suspended like 6 games. But I like A.J. Dillon right now. Okay, A.J. Dillon had a great second half of last year. Had a really good run weeks 12 through 17. And I just think if he can hold on to some of that momentum, even with Aaron Jones being there, we know Aaron Rodgers no longer part of that offense. We know that the Packers are probably going to need to run the football more. I think all that is good for A.J. Dillon. Once again, if you're going here a running back, you don't have to neglect the running back position after you get your first running back, but you also don't have to draft the most valuable running backs for the remainder of your roster, because you're really relying on that RB1, then you're just filling in value throughout the season at RB2, and hopefully you don't have to flex too many running backs because we have acquired so many wide receivers throughout the draft. And hopefully we hit on them, and hopefully we continue to add good wide receivers through the waiver wire and trading. So I'm actually okay with A.J. Dillon as my running back 3. Definitely would have preferred James Conner, and I really, really like Rachaad White. Overall, prefer Rachaad White, David Montgomery. They're both gone. James Conner also gone at 6.12. Okay, moving on to the 8.7. I passed on Dallas Goedert at the 6.7. Went ahead and got that second running back in Isaiah Pacheco. We've still got a lot of good tight ends on the board. Pat Freiermuth, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Cole Kmet, Darren Waller. A lot of rookies, a lot of names right here. Greg Dulcich as well. So I'm going to hold off another round at the tight end position, and I'm probably just going to go running back here because I do think that there are some pretty good names here. I mean, we've got Antonio Gibson, we've got Brian Robinson. We can take a chance on one of the Commanders. Looking at wide receivers, I think we can hold off a tier. So let's take a chance on a Washington running back, and I'm actually going to go Antonio Gibson here, but I don't have a problem if you prefer Brian Robinson between the two Washington running backs. Obviously, the only reason I'm taking Gibson there is because he will be involved in the passing game. We have a new offensive coordinator with the Washington Commanders. Hopefully, they can get something positive going. I mean, but coming from the Kansas City Chiefs, I would assume that should happen. The bigger issue is the quarterback play. Does the Sam Howell experiment work out or not? At the end of the day, though, Antonio Gibson, still a young running back, age 24, going into his 4th season, over 800 yards from scrimmage every year of his career so far. I know he's battled injuries. I know he's been inconsistent at times, but I really like Antonio Gibson because he brings that pass catching upside in full PPR formats compared to Brian Robinson, who I do think you could argue might have more opportunities to score touchdowns, but doesn't bring all the pass catching ability to the table. So Brian Robinson goes at 8.8, Gibson goes at 8.7. Let me know in the comments, who would you rather have? I don't really have an issue with going either running back, but I will note that I think both of those Washington Commanders running backs are good values in redraft formats in the 8th round. Okay, Now we have 4 running backs. We have 4 wide receivers. Let's take a little bit of a breather at the running back position. Tight end starting to go. So we took that little bit of a gamble at the tight end position. And now we're kind of in a spot where we probably have to go tight end. So let's go Cole Kmet at the 9.6. That's going to be my tight end 1 going in to the season for this particular roster. And I don't have a problem with that. I believe in the Bears offense taking a step forward. I can certainly understand why there are fantasy managers out there who are concerned with Justin Fields, passing ability, all that stuff, accuracy. But I like Justin Fields. I think they're going to be able to take a step forward as an offense. I don't have a problem with Cole Kmet, even with the addition of Robert Tonyan to that offense. I still believe in Cole Kmet. So now we do have 2 pieces of the Bears and DJ Moore and Cole Kmet, but I think we'll survive. Looking at tight ends who are remaining on the board right now, David Njoku, Dawson Knox, he gets a little bit of a hit, obviously with Kincaid going to that offense, but I still think he holds some value, don't get me wrong. Michael Mayer is there as well. I mean, also in his rookie season. Then Greg Dulcich. So still plenty of names. I mean, Jawan Johnson. There are definitely options here, but I'm not going to be upset with going Cole Kmet there at all. Allen Lazard goes at the 9.5. If Allen Lazard was available at the 9.6, I personally would take him all day long. I really, in full PPR scoring formats, am a huge fan of Allen Lazard. I just think he's going to be that security blanket for Aaron Rodgers with the Jets. I think he's locked in as the wide receiver 2 for the Jets. I love him at his current ADP. Was really actually hoping he would fall to 9.6 there, but not surprised that he went at the 9.5 at all. So coming to the end of this draft, we still need a quarterback, and I will say if you're fading quarterback, that is the one scenario in a 1 QB redraft league where I don't have a problem with coming out of your draft with 2 quarterbacks. But we'll kind of see how things shake out. There's a lot of, I mean, Dak Prescott's still on the board. If I come out of a draft with just Prescott, I'm not personally upset about it. But other than that, we got Aaron Rodgers, we got Tua, we got Kyler. Kyler, a lot of risk there. I don't know if I want to take it, but if you're going to redraft, is probably the place to do so. Just make sure you draft an additional quarterback. But Danny Dimes, Geno Smith, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, even Garoppolo, Carr, Pickett. I mean, there are definitely names at the very end of your draft you can go with. But I like pairing like a Tua with an Aaron Rodgers, for example. But like I said, Dak Prescott might fall out here, which I think would be a really good value. I mean, I get Prescott threw a lot of interceptions last year or whatever, but at the end of the day, had a lot of good starts as well. So I think he's a really good value. That's probably who I'll go with if he's available, and he is. So I'm just going to consider that a really good value for the night, and I'll take Dak Prescott as my QB1. And honestly, even with getting Dak, I think you could still consider going with a second quarterback like a Rodgers, like a Jones, like a Goff. But we'll kind of see how the rest of this shapes out. For the most part, with these final selections, I'm just going best available player. We haven't drafted a wide receiver since the 5th round, so we definitely want to try and get a wide receiver in the 11th round. But we also want to see like what running backs are available, what quarterbacks, what tight ends. Ultimately, though, the majority of redraft formats, I'm just loading up at the wide receiver position at the end of my drafts. Probably try to take another running back who has some upside. Kendre Miller just went off the board at 10.10. I think that's a great example of a running back, even in a redraft format, who brings some upside at the end of your draft. I mean, a lot of rookies here in the 10th round. Devon Achane, Roshan Johnson, Kendre Miller. I would take all of those guys hands down in the 10th round of redraft formats. See that Anthony, I do want to make a side note. I mean, this is a full subscriber mock. Anthony goes with Hall at 10.2. Probably not going to see that, but he is a loyal Vikings fan. He did draft Kirk Cousins. I don't know. It's always good to kind of have in mocks. Like, I'd rather have a scenario like that you might see in your home league if you are an avid Vikings fan, as compared to drafting like with auto drafts on ESPN or Yahoo and just getting completely random selections and picks that don't make sense. So anyways, side note, that happened, but we'll move right along. Nonetheless, when I'm looking at wide receivers here in the 11th round, okay, compared to running backs available, Zeke, I will take a chance and redraft on Zeke right now. I'm not going to lie, but I just don't feel like he's necessary for this team. I'd rather take a Jerick McKinnon or Kenneth Gainwell in the following round, assuming that one of those two guys lands to us. If they don't, we'll pivot. But I think I just go best available wide receiver here. Looking at the rookies available, Jalen Hyatt, Jonathan Mingo, Josh Downs, Rashee Rice. I think all those guys are worth taking. Looking at non-rookies, Jacoby Myers, Tyler Boyd, Sky Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, excuse me. Plenty of options here, but I actually personally really like Rashid Shaheed, and I don't know if he'll fall back to me. So I think there's two options. You either go Rashid Shaheed here, which is what I'm going to do, or you take an upside rookie pick on a Jalen Hyatt or a Rashee Rice. Nonetheless, I'm happy with Rashid Shaheed. I absolutely love Shaheed as like a wide receiver 5. Got enough production his rookie season with mediocre quarterback play that I will take the chance on him all day long with the Saints acquiring Derek Carr at the quarterback position. Listen, I love Chris Olave. I get that Michael Thomas is still on this roster, but with Thomas's health being so up and down, I just think Shaheed is really going to come in as the wide receiver 2 for the Saints. And I mean, currently Shaheed is going slightly later in most mock drafts, but I really think the closer and closer we get to August, Shaheed is going to continue to move up draft boards. And trust me, I've seen that in a number of underdog drafts, a number of mock drafts with our community. And he's also a very popular name in dynasty communities as well. So I don't think taking him at 11.6 is overdrafting him by any means whatsoever. So looking at the 12.6, 13.7 here, kind of a shorter mock for you guys just to kind of get things into gear as we're slowly shifting into the fantasy season. I'm just going to take the best available wide receiver and running back. Like I said, Jerick McKinnon, Kenneth Gainwell, 2 late-round running backs that I personally really like. And more than likely in a real draft, you're probably going to have 1 or 2 additional rounds. So I'll probably just draft potentially a rookie receiver, bring some upside like a Rashee Rice. But outside of that, Jerick McKinnon, Kenneth Gainwell, just 2 late-round running backs that I'm willing to take a chance on all day long. Especially having Pacheco on this team, we kind of get a handcuff situation in the best of both worlds. So outside of that, we could go quarterback. I mean, Tua time, Aaron Rodgers, Jones, Goff, all those guys we talked about earlier are still available. And like that's the thing, like let me know in the comments. Do you think waiting at quarterback and getting any of those guys I just named is worth it as opposed to going Dak Prescott at 10.7 when we could have got like a Kendre Miller, Darnell Mooney, Zay Jones, Adam Thielen, a lot of names right there. I could have got another tight end like a Dalton Kincaid or Nkonkwo, David Njoku. So yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, like I said, in one QB redraft formats, there's so much value at the end of drafts at the quarterback position. All right, Jerick McKinnon is off of the board, so we'll take Kenneth Gainwell here at the 12.7, and he will end up being my RB5, which I absolutely love. Yes, the Eagles are going to utilize DeAndre Swift, but he has some injury history. Yes, they're going to utilize Rashad Penny. He also has injury history. And yes, Jalen Hurts runs the football a lot, but he just signed a massive contract. The Eagles are certainly going to try and limit his rushing ability at the end of the day. So I love Kenneth Gainwell. I really do. He's been my late round running back to select all off season long because I believe in the Eagles offense. We know they're going to run the football a lot. And primarily there are injury concerns between the 2 starting running backs on that team. And I really think as the season went on, Kenneth Gainwell continued to show a lot of good value throughout the season at the position. So I just like Gainwell as a late round running back. I wouldn't go out and make him like a primary target, but being able to select him as like an RB5, something I've really been hammering away at throughout this offseason so far. Okay, with this final selection at the 13.6, I mean, we could go with another quarterback. We could take another wide receiver. Those will probably be the only 2 routes I'll go. Looking at the available tight ends, I mean, Dawson Knox is there, Jawan Johnson. There are certainly some options. Sam Laporta could be interesting. Kate Otten, Hayden Hurst. There are options. Don't get me wrong. But I just think in a redraft format, unless it's tight end premium, coming out of your draft with 1 tight end is fine. Play the waiver wire aggressively at the beginning of the year because there's only going to be so many options at the tight end position throughout the year. But as long as you can find someone to fill in, if there's an injury to your starting tight end, you'll probably be fine. And I'm saying that with how much, I mean, there's a ton of risk at the tight end position last year and not a lot of good play outside of the top guys. So don't get me wrong, if last year scarred you at tight end, I get it if you want to go out and get a second guy. Okay, available quarterbacks, Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, Anthony Richardson if you wanted to get fun. Available running backs, Kareem Hunt, Patterson. Ultimately, I'm just going to take an upside pick here. I'm going to go Rashee Rice, rookie with the Kansas City Chiefs. Top available wide receivers, Allen Robinson, Hunter Renfrow, Sky Moore, DPJ, Josh Downs, Kayshon Boutte, Michael Gallup, Wendell Robinson, Romeo Dobbs. I mean, there's all kinds of arguments for a lot of these players, but I'll just take the upside pick that's tied to Patrick Mahomes and go Rashee Rice. And that'll be my final selection of today's draft. So I'll let these final selections play out for you guys. Also adjusted my screen so you guys can see the full draft board, get a good look there. And that'll wrap up today's video as well as today's mock draft. So if you guys have any mock draft requests, please drop them down below, whether it's 8 teams, 12 teams, 14 teams, half PPR, tight end premium, super flex, whatever it may be, let me know and I will get it down for the schedule. Be sure to join our next live stream as well. Be sure to tune into our Dynasty Startup mocks for the rest of the month, as well as our Underdog Best Ball Mania 4 live streams on top of that. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button on the way out. All we do here is free fantasy football content, redraft, Dynasty, and Best Ball all year round. If you guys are into that, hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching. On top of that, whether you guys are new to the channel or not, be sure to hit that like button on the way out. And please feel free to drop any comments, questions, concerns pertaining to the 2023 fantasy football season down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. With that, I will say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening. And remember, you saw it here on The Catch.